Hi everybody, this is the Cricket Badger podcast.
Each badger marks the track with its own scent.
His black legs are short but very powerful for digging. The name badger probably comes from the French word bêcher, meaning digger.
And hello, everybody. Welcome along. It's 2023. Happy New Year. It's a belated one from me because it's the first Cricket Badger podcast since the end of October, actually. There's been 2 World Cups and Christmas and New Year celebrations, and now we're back into a new year, and a load of Cricket Badger podcasts are planned. This Cricket Badger podcast is now sponsored by Manscaped.com for the best in male grooming. Quote Badger with your order and get 20% off and free shipping. And thank you to them for their support. We are doing a podcast today. It's kind of twofold. The first 2/3 will be very much about cricket scoring and how you can get involved in cricket, not just in playing, but there are other things you can do to get yourselves involved in cricket as we go through various cricket seasons. And to start off with, let's get you all a little bit bigger on the screen. Hello to Chris, hello to Charlotte, hello to Thomas, and hello to Jack. Chris, let's start with you. No Boundaries Cricket Club. We've talked about that before on the Cricket Badger podcast. You were very kind to ask me to be an ambassador for that. And we're going to do a monthly podcast as we go through 2023 with the No Boundaries connection, talking about various cricket things. But just for those of the people that don't know what that's all about, in a nutshell, what is No Boundaries Cricket Club?
I think it's, well, first of all, Happy New Year. I don't know when we stopped saying that, but I haven't seen you guys before, so this year, so Happy New Year. No Boundaries, I think, is about trying to give individuals an opportunity in life through cricket. And one of the ways that we want to do that is to actually highlight the fact that cricket isn't just about playing cricket. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm not athletic, I'm not old enough, I don't live near a club, I don't have the confidence, I don't like team sports. But there's a multitude of ways in which individuals can get involved through cricket, and I think there's a multitude of things that cricket can give back to those individuals. And scoring is one of those. So I thought it was a good way to start this off. Charlotte, is the first I knew about, got involved with scoring with us. Her background. Thomas has just qualified, I think, or he's just started scoring. Jack's a seasoned pro in many ways, and scoring is one of them. But I'll let them talk about that. I mean, for me, this is just about an example of the way in which cricket can actually get involved that they may not think naturally is the way they would have got involved.
Let's start with you, Charlotte. We are pleased to have you on the Cricket Badger podcast. It's nice to see you. And how long have you been involved in cricket scoring?
So I got into scoring sort of through lockdown. I'd been listening to all the back episodes of Tailenders, and Felix White was talking a lot about scoring, and it was lockdown. I had all of these endless hours to fill, so I was like, I think now is the time to have a bash at this. I just completely did it on my own, so no official knowledge of scoring here. I looked up on the internet what the different signs meant and kind of logicked my way through it. I think it appeals to me. I'm a very mathematical person, so sort of getting into cricket initially, I don't know if you remember. Well, you guys might have grown up with cricket, but I didn't. I came to it later, and watching cricket, with the ticker at the bottom.
Yeah,
there's so many numbers. What is going on? And everyone's like, oh, it's okay, just go with it. And I was like, nah, I'm not having that. So I've always had to understand what's going on. So I think for me, it was a natural progression. So yeah, I kind of fudged it, made a few mistakes, realized this doesn't work, that doesn't work, and sort of settled into a routine. But I love it. because you can't focus on anything else. And in lockdown, that was exactly what I needed. So there was a day, find an old match on YouTube. Here's your book, here's your pens. Don't worry about everything else for 6-8 hours, however long it is. And like for me, that was an absolute godsend.
Those glorious days of lockdown, which we all remember fondly. So you
Yeah.
didn't grow up with cricket then, but what actually turned you on to cricket? What was it that actually got you watching cricket?
So my other half has followed cricket since '05, like I'm sure lots of people in the country. So I met him back in 2012 and sort of, yeah, cricket's fine, you know, like watch it in the background, like, oh yeah, I'll watch a bit of cricket with you. And then I'm sure this is another familiar story, but I watched the World Cup final when that was on free-to-air TV, and that was me like, oh yeah, actually, I think this might be something I'm quite into, and it's kind of been a bit of a rapid journey for me because that's not very long ago in the grand scheme of things.
No. Thomas, let's bring you on to the Cricket Badger podcast. Welcome along. Another cricket scorer. How long have you been doing it, and how did you get into doing cricket scoring?
Well, I think I mean that's a marvelous question because if I'm being perfectly honest, I've never scored a game of cricket in my life. I received a scorebook for Christmas, and then reached out to Charlotte and Jack on Twitter for any tips they might have. I've played a little bit, but I've never scored. And I think to the uninitiated with scoring, I think seeing a completed scorebook for the first time is kind of quite similar really to watching an actual cricket match for the first time, and that there's clearly some logic to what's being played out in front of you, but without context it's utterly bewildering. It's just mental. But I think also the thing with scoring, I think ultimately what you're trying to do, and correct me if I'm wrong at any point, but what you're trying to do is make sense of what's in front of you. And I think, you know, whether you're Alex Hartley and you've played at the highest level and you're commentating on an England game, or if you're someone like me who plays on a Saturday, gets out in a very kind of feeble way and spends the rest of the week mulling it over, all we're really ever trying to do is make sense of the game. And I think everybody who loves cricket has found that the more we talk about it, the more that we play, the more we understand it, but also the further away we really feel from ever truly kind of mastering and truly understanding what it is.
Thomas, you will never fully understand cricket. There's always something. On a previous podcast, I can't remember who, I think it was Vic Marks, we talked about having layers of an onion, and you peel one back thinking, oh, I've cracked it now, and there's still loads more to get to. Jack, you sound as if you're the most senior, if that's the right phrase, in terms of your scoring experience. Same question to you. How long have you been doing it, and what got you into it?
Yeah, when Chris called me a pro, I was kind of I've not actually been officially ever trained. I'm actually going on one of the courses later this year, to rough up my knowledge really. So I like most people. So I started scoring only about 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
Before then, I played a bit. Then I had a couple of injuries, so that stopped me playing. So then I was kind of doing stuff on the sidelines. I umpired a little bit, and then I kind of got into the scoring side really, and just found that was the side that enthralled me and enjoyed me. Like Charlotte says, it's kind of one of those things. When I go to a game now, you're focused on that. You don't get distracted by everything. And all too often, you go to a game and you can end up kind of getting distracted, not actually watching what's going on, and all of a sudden you hear a cheer go up because there's a wicket, etc., and then you go, "Oh, what happened there?" Whereas actually, I found when I was scoring, I was actually watching the actual play and what was going on. So that's why I took it.
Quite a while ago on the podcast now, Graham Lambert, who's a Lancashire fan, he was the guitarist with the Inspiral Carpets. I don't know if anybody remembers them. He came on on a famous fans episode, and when he goes to Old Trafford, sometimes he scores the match. He sits there in the crowd and scores along, just to kind of keep himself involved in it. And he says, you can maybe turn off for a couple of balls, you can catch up, and obviously with things like Cricket Info these days, if you have to disappear for 20 minutes and answer the telephone, you can kind of retrace your steps a little bit as well. But there's a lot of concentration, Charlotte, in it, isn't there? You can't just kind of disappear off down the shops for an hour and then come back and try and regroup.
Yeah.
You've got to kind of stay tuned to every ball that's going down.
Yeah, like I've got so many games because I don't tend to score at games very much because I tend to go more socially. So I do a lot of scoring off my TV at home. And there's so many like half games in my scorebook when life's got in the way or something's happened. Like I've got the first half of Crawley's 267, but then I had plans the next day, so I don't have the other half. Which
So
is
what
kind
happens
of
on
really
the score sheet?
frustrating.
Was it Zach Crawley 138 not out? EastEnders has started or something?
Wow. I tell you, yeah. Sometimes like, I've got a couple in there. Like I filled out all of the information, and I was just like, I just can't be bothered today. I've got other stuff to do. But
Well,
I
that's
don't
the
know.
attitude, isn't it?
Well, but I'm not doing it for any reason.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing it for personal, like pleasure, or because I enjoy it. So if I don't want to do it, like there's no pressure, and I think that's what it needs to be. Like I don't know about you, Jack. Like when you post pictures of your scorecards, like how many people pile on to tell you, oh, you're doing this wrong, or oh, it should look like that. And I'm like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah,
Go away. I had a nice time.
Yeah. The amount of times they go, oh, you missed one. I'm like, guys, it's just fun. I'm just doing it for the
exactly.
fun. Don't worry about it. It's like, this isn't the official record of the game. It's just a bit of fun. Don't worry.
How much more pressure would that add, Jack? Because I mean, I've been involved in cricket and I've kind of talked to various scorers, and they are basically in charge of the official record of the game, as you just said. That would add an extra dynamic. There'd be an extra layer of pressure if you had to actually get everything right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there would be, and obviously, like, there are games that I've scored where I have been technically the official scorer for the game, and that is very much, I think, a different mindset to when you're scoring for fun. That is very much, do not talk to me, do not distract me, and getting this down. When you're doing it for fun, it's just a case of, oh, I may have missed a ball or two, and that is where cricket info. Hold my hands up. There's been the odd game or two where I've been scoring along and oh, I've missed something there and gone back through cricket info and gone, oh, right, it was that, and changed it. That's the joy of the game. There's so many different places you can find it.
Thomas, what in terms of? Sorry, Chris, go on.
No, I was going to say, from Jack's perspective, having been an umpire and scored official games, that relationship, for Charlotte and Thomas, when they do step up with a white line and score games, Charlotte hopefully down with one of our games and Thomas in April with us. But the relationship with the umpire is quite important, isn't it? In terms of, it probably takes it a little bit away from fun, but it will give you a sense of responsibility and authority, really, because they are. If a ball that hasn't been recorded, or they're not sure what their count is or whatever, that they will ask you. So it is quite an important relationship, Jack, isn't it?
Yeah, and the way that I've seen it in with games I've done is, you're not an umpiring team and a scoring team. You're one team of officials. So you work together, and quite often, if you're lucky enough, sometimes you'll have radio contact between the teams. So they'll be able to ask you a question. You'll be able to ask them a question, etc. It's just about that communication and breaks during games. Tea break, etc. Just quickly catching up with each other, double checking there's nothing you think that either of you've missed. It's just, it's communication. That's the key, really.
So what level are you at, Jack, then? What's the biggest game that you've scored?
So I've not done anything bigger than a club game, just a kind of a club Saturday game, really. So I've not done any league games yet because I'm not technically accredited yet. I'm doing that this year, so then I'll be going up and doing more official league games and stuff.
So the ambition with your scoring is to go through into more official, and then would you ever want to do it as a job?
I mean, I'd love to try any kind of job you can get in cricket and be working within the game instead. I'd love to do, but I'm fully aware there are a lot more talented people than me out there that's already doing it, and I look in awe of some of the scorers that post things online here. Oh, I'd love to be able to do that, going all around the world and scoring games.
What about you, Thomas? I mean, you're a bit newer to it, but what would you like to achieve as a scorer? Is this just for fun? Is this just to give you another kind of walk into cricket, or would you actually like to do it a bit more seriously?
Who knows? At this stage, who knows? But what I would say, I think really I'm just looking for more ways to enjoy the game. And I think as Charlotte touched upon, the kind of almost meditative kind of aspect of it is quite appealing. Although obviously, as we touched upon in a kind of live situation, it's possibly a little bit more intense. But I'm sure there are ways I can train for that. I'm sure I can wave at my TV when the umpire has changed his mind and signaled a leg bye instead of a bye. But as I said, just different ways to enjoy the game. And I think this is just a different avenue that I haven't explored. And honestly, I'd like to be able to kind of help out my club a little bit more. I think sometimes shy away a little bit when somebody says, "Oh, can you umpire at third, a square leg for a little while, or can you score?" And I've always had to say, "No, I can't score." So maybe it's time to change that. This is the year.
Yeah, you've got no excuse now, have you? Got no excuse. I mean, do you find that you understand the game? I mean, we talked about kind of like the layers of onions and what have you, but the more you score, I mean, this to Charlotte, because you're kind of maybe a bit newer to cricket, the more you've scored, do you understand the game a little bit more? Do you actually get a bit more out of the game because you can see a different side to it?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think you're forced to pay attention to things that you wouldn't normally pay attention to. So like, when you're first getting into cricket, like someone's hit the ball and they've run over there, like great, like, but it's really easy to, I think, almost not see the umpires when you're getting into the game because you're so focused on the action. Obviously, that's one of the big drawbacks of scoring from the TV, because
I was going to say that, Charlotte,
because I do a
lot of off-tube studio commentary on cricket. And sometimes you're commentating and you think, is that a leg bye? Is that not a leg bye? Because you can't, the umpire's gone out of shot. You can't see him raise his leg, can you? So there are definitely disadvantages with doing it off the TV.
But then, like, if it doesn't matter, like, it doesn't actually matter if it goes down as a leg bye or a bye. Like, if I'm just doing it for me, like, it's a bit frustrating when you get to the end and check against the scorecard on ESPN or whatever and it doesn't match. But I've kind of made my peace with that because, like,
I look forward to you saying that to a wicketkeeper.
Well, I'm never. Well, when am I going to have to say that to a wicketkeeper? Like, on the odd occasion I score a club game. Like, I've got no ambitions with it. So for me, there's no pressure.
I like this continual word of concentration. I made a note before we came on that there was a clip on TV some time ago, and it was a guy who was umpiring, scoring, and he must have had about 4 rows to himself. So it must have been a county game. I'm not quite sure where his dog was, but he was there, and the intense concentration on, because the camera, normally when a camera goes on to somebody at a cricket match, they all go, "Oh, look at this," and whatever. This guy never batted up, never looked up, and they must have gone on for 5 minutes because he had his red pen, his green pen, no pencils, just coloured pens, and he was so intent on it, right? And he obviously had play cricket or something going on, cricket info on his phone, and it was like almost like a mission control thing, this whole thing, and the concentration on him, it was absolutely amazing. It just struck me. So I was really quite interested when you all said that, the intensity, the concentration, the just we all do better when we lose ourselves in something that we enjoy. We distractions don't come in, time stops. We don't go and get a snack or whatever. We just really get involved in that moment, and I just think that's great. I think what you've done is great.
It's interesting you say that, actually, Chris, because the number of times that I've my big area is the women's game. So the number of times I've been at an England women's game and somebody sent me a message and gone, "Oh, you're on the telly again," and I have had no clue whatsoever because I've been sat there. I've got a book in front of me. I've got coloured pens going everywhere. I've got changing around, and apparently there's been times where they've been discussing me on the TV, and I've just had no idea whatsoever because I've just been in my own little world while I was watching the game and scoring along.
Chris, you shared You shared a picture
Sorry,
of a
Jack, you were
scorecard.
I do wear a sun hat sometimes.
It was actually you, then. It was actually you.
Chris, you shared a picture of a scorebook the other day, an old one. You talked about doing it in the 70s, and I'm only a little bit younger than you. The old books that we used to get were just like you opened them up. You had the batting bit on the top, you had the bowling on the bottom. You did the extras. You chalked off the runs on the right hand side. It's fairly primitive, really, when you see some of the score sheets that you see around now. And so, some of them, I mean, anybody can come in on this, but some of them are actually sold as artwork now. You see people who have done the full game, and it might be a special game, and it's all the different colour pens, and it's basically framed up. And people hang them on their wall, don't they? Like the 2019 World Cup finals, probably on people's walls as a scorecard.
Well, as you know, I mean, I took 33 years out of the game. So back in the 70s when I was playing as a youngster, it was your job to score. And I also used to umpire in a coat that was nearly as big as me. That they used to send me out in as a 13-year-old, and no real lessons and everything. But when I looked at them, they are just a work of art, realistically. And the amount, we literally just had to record, as James said, the runs, the wickets, all the like that. But none of this like breaking when the bowler stopped, or how many face, or the time in, or the time out, or anything. So when I came back.
The primitive old hardcover score books that me and Chris is talking about now, they were very much kind of like horizontal. You just kind of filled in the runs and you did it horizontally. Whereas these days it's all kind of down. You basically over and batter, and everything goes downwards, and it's quite impressive.
Well, yeah, and to be fair, like I can show you I've got one of mine here.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing doesn't sound so different to
it's
how I
pretty much still the same as we do now, to be honest. Yeah,
that's what mine looked like.
It's no real change to them, to be honest. Sometimes the old school ways are the best ways of doing it, to be honest.
Do you do the same, Thomas? Are you on the same kind of scorebook?
Yeah, I believe I'm working horizontally, if that is the phrase, landscape. Left to right. I was gifted a lovely red-covered Kookaburra scoring book, and it looks very. I think that's good to know. I think I just need a few more coloured pens now, and I'm halfway there.
And a sun hat.
I think the scorebooks are pretty standard now, aren't they? But something that came out in the chat when we were all discussing having this conversation. The use of pencils and colours scoring in a linear fashion, is that right? Or a linear scoring? I'm lost on that. I may well have just broken some sort of like.
I've seen that, Joe, and you put the new batter comes in, you stick his name on his column, and then you've got the bowler going on the left-hand side of that, and you basically just work him down until he's out, and then you put a line under him, and then the new batter comes in, and it goes down in the overs, isn't it? You're going downwards rather than sideways.
I think people tend to do that more when they're scoring in an official capacity. I think there's a lot of people who score official games have that running alongside a scorebook like we're using, because I think that the linear scoring is easier to keep track of what the batter's on, because like you get to the end of an innings or end of a spell and you're like, no idea how many runs there are there. But I don't know how to do linear scoring. That's next on my list, I think.
And a lot of the official scorers at county games and internationals, they're not only doing the pen on paper stuff, they're also inputting the last ball into a computer as well, because obviously the ESPN Cricinfo stuff that you use to catch up on is being entered by somebody at the grounds live there to actually go out and be broadcast as a score.
Yeah,
and quite often if you look up into a scorer's box, there's about 4 computers, 5 different score books, pens everywhere. I don't know how they do it sometimes, to be honest with you, because they're kind of, you're going from one to another to another to another every ball, and it's just kind of going round and round and round. Personally,
we just have to.
I say personally, I can't do linear scoring. I just can't get my head around it. I probably need to do more practice on it. I know it's used a lot, certainly in broadcast work. In the radio, they use it a lot. I think in the TV, they quite often use it because, as Charlotte said, it's just easier to keep track over of what's happened and how many runs have come off and over, etc. But personally, I can't do it. And I need a lot more practice.
We just had to buy a. I mean, you said earlier, given the line that you're a Mac user. I've been a Mac user for years. I've just had to buy a Windows, notebook PC to do the PC scorer, to go into play cricket. So I mean, that's what you can imagine. What you're saying is that you've got your scorebook, you've got your computer with that, you've probably got your notebook, your phone, or your tablet, keeping track, quick info or whatever. And it's. But I kind of like that. I like the fact that, I mean, Jacob, the London, the guy in Somerset, he put a post out last year or something off to score cricket, and he got 2 chargers, his tablet, and battery backups. And, I don't think Scott was up to the Antarctic as the scorers and even other players now. The kit they have to have their pockets and everything. Don't get me started on my cricket bag because it's like the target at the moment. But the game has evolved so much, and I think that's the point: is that everybody now has the opportunity to be professional and develop. It's not just a Saturday afternoon hobby, right? You can go home and you can practice. You can go on the YouTube, you can watch the TV the game on TV. You could probably do a Zoom call with some other people and get some some chatting and tips and hints going. And that's the great thing, I suspect, about the fact that the technology is around there, and that you've social media and you can put things up and ask to comment. So it's not necessarily as isolated an activity as it possibly was, where you were the one person at the ground that nobody spoke to. They didn't want to speak to you, so they made you the scorer. So it's changed. It's changed quite a lot.
I mean, do you do that, Thomas? I mean, you can basically go onto YouTube and find out how to wire a plug, put a light bulb in something. Pretty much every task is YouTubeable with some kind of how-to guide. Is there a how to score a cricket match kind of YouTube video that you've watched?
I'm sure it exists. I think before we came on, you were admiring my webcam blur, which is covering the decorating the background. I think, which goes to show that I haven't been much use watching YouTube tutorials to help my partner decorate the house. So maybe that's an area I need to explore. I was just wondering, Jack, you mentioned that you sometimes post things online and people have various responses. I think there's, the kind of issue of gatekeeping is probably quite prevalent in many areas of cricket. But is there room for somebody just scoring in a way which just makes sense for them? Is that the most important thing, or do I need to do some serious research?
No,
what I've got myself in for.
No. Me and Charlotte both pretty much saying. First thing I say to anyone that says to me, "I want to score," I say to them this: you can score however you want to score. Does not matter. You do not have to use, unless you're if you're in an official game, you should really. But you do not have to use any symbols that are currently used. You can score using, if you want to use stars, triangles, moons, whatever you want to use, you can use whatever you want to use to score, as long as you can then go and tell somebody what it all means.
I'm going to blow your minds. My system will be incomparable to anything you've ever seen before.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
You were nodding along there, Charlotte. You were nodding along there, Charlotte, as well, in terms of like you do your own thing.
Yeah. I mean, me and Jack have had this conversation so many times. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or if it's just people on the internet, but I can't post a picture of my scorebook without having at least 3 people popping up in my inbox telling me I've done this wrong and I should be doing it like that. I think like the ultimate moment was watching people arguing on my post about how or why I'd done something. I'm like, oh, well, I've done this because of this. No, it's not because of that. It should be this. It should be that. I'm not sat here saying this is the official scorecard of this game and everything else is wrong. Like, I just did something I was proud of and I put a photo on the internet. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I think I find it really disappointing when you hear stuff like that. Because actually, I've seen some of Charlotte's books, and they are way neater than anything I've ever done, ever. And
Thank
you know, I look at Charlotte's in envy sometimes, and I think there is no need to be, you know, don't criticize somebody because they're doing something to enjoy the game. They're doing it because they enjoy the game. You're more within your, you know, more than welcome to ask a question. Go, why have you? What's the reason you've done this? And I'm sure Charlotte, like me, will quite happily say, "Oh, I do it like that because that's what I do that way." But you don't need to criticize. There's no need to criticize about it. You know, there's a lot of things we criticize in the game already. I just don't think you need to do it when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'm all for like open conversation. Like, I'll chat scoring any day of the week. But, you know, it is demoralising sometimes when
There is a bit of misogyny in cricket, I would suggest, and but there are quite a lot of fairly high-profile female scorers in the county game and beyond, and in the media. That, you know, statisticians aren't just male.
No, and you know, just like any role within cricket is not just male, but I think it's very easy to only see one side of the game. Like, what's immediately available is massively male dominated, and a lot of the people who shout the loudest have a very fixed viewpoint on what the game is and what the game isn't, and it's exhausting. It is very difficult to feel like you have a place. Like, I've really struggled with having a voice in the cricket community because I'm new to the game. I don't play. I don't know X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm always learning something new, and you know, you feel a bit like a fraud sometimes. But like, I consider myself quite confident in my identity and my voice. I'm quite happy to put myself out there, but you know, you can see how difficult it would be for someone who didn't feel the same way to carve out a niche. And I think that there's a lot of people. I think a lot of people need to be conscious of how they speak to people and how their interactions are. I can't remember who mentioned gatekeeping earlier, but it's huge. Like, it comes up everywhere, and people don't realize they're doing it, or they do realize they're doing it, and they just don't care, and it's just exhausting.
You do really need to develop a thick skin on social media these days. My Mankad tweet from yesterday, I've been called an idiot, I've got all sorts of different things, and it makes you feel very good. You skip out the front door in the morning thinking, "Oh, that's marvellous, thank you for that." But anyway, I'm going to play this advert, and we'll come back and we'll talk about Mankads and various other things after this break.
Gentlemen, I want to show you my balls. Look at them, they're silky and smooth. Those are their attributes. I haven't given them names. But for some people, smooth isn't enough. They want smoother. They want flawless. They want transcendent. They want perfection. A surface that's completely without friction. That's why Manscaped created the Ultra Smooth package. For men who like their package, ultra smooth. The exfoliator repairs, the clear gel protects, and the crop shaver perfects. Still going. The crop shaver has 3 precision blades as well as micro combo bar and extra wide lubrication strips, so your crown jewels won't fear getting nicked. So if you're the kind of guy who wants to be that little bit smoother, go to manscaped.com and you could have a package as perfect as this.
Make sure you quote Badger. You get yourself 20% off and you get free shipping as well. Thank you to Manscaped for the support of the Cricket Badger podcast. I mentioned earlier the Mankad thing. We've had lots of, I apologise to a certain section of the population for calling it a Mankad. It's just easy reference. Everybody knows that word. Obviously, Vinny Mankad, a legend of the game, and I know his family don't like his name associated with that, so that's something worth saying. The run out at the non-striker's end is another way of putting it. And when the bowler comes in, thinks that the non-striker is kind of edging out of the ground, takes the bails off rather than delivering the ball. and claims the run out. I have quite strong opinions on this, and I'll probably do what Charlotte hates and be quite bombastic on this, because I always think that it's a bit sneaky. I think it's a bit sort of, I hate it as a form of dismissal. There's no skill, other than actually being able to use your peripheral vision. There's no skill in a Mankad whatsoever. And I always think there's a danger as well when you go past the perpendicular, when you go past that point of delivery. As a non-striker, you're supposed to, aren't you? Be backing up and running your bat out of the crease. And if you're anticipating the ball's going to be let go at the full height, you're going to be sliding your bat out as that ball's released. If he then or she then turns back and whips the bails off, you will be out your crease. And I just think it all feels a little bit unsatisfactory to me. Charlotte, let's start with you. Do you think the run out at the non-striker's end is I mean, it's in the laws. Is it a legitimate and fine dismissal, or is it something that leaves a sour taste?
I've been thinking about this quite a lot, obviously, with everything that's been going on. And I think that it's very easy to just reactionary be like, no, that's not okay, that's not fair. Like, it doesn't feel like a great dismissal if you're just taking it at face value and not giving it much thought. But fundamentally, it exists as a way to hold people accountable for trying to cheat, right? Trying to gain runs. Is that my understanding of it? Because like I said, I'm kind of
getting a head start, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and like, is that okay? Like,
but do two wrongs make a right, Charlotte? Does the fact that somebody's maybe just squeezing the rules and getting a little bit of a head start mean it should be? I mean, it's in the laws, but it just feels a little bit sly to me, Jack.
Right. My initial feeling when it all started to come up again last year with Charlie Verma and Charlie Dean, my initial feeling at that point was it doesn't feel right at that point. However, as I've gone through and I've thought about it a bit more, is it necessarily the way I would choose? Probably not. But, at the end of the day, you shouldn't be leaving your ground. Don't leave your ground.
Are we in danger, though, Jack, of having some captains being quite noble and saying, well, we're not going to actually enforce this? Another captain saying, yeah, get in, we'll have 10 more, please. Let's get them all out quickly.
Yes, I think we are. And I think we are going to probably, and I think it's going to be that horrible position in which you're going to have, a World Cup game or, a test match, something going on with two different captains have different, have different views. You've seen the likes of Ben Stokes, Josh Buttler has come out and said they won't enforce it. But then why should their view be the correct view when a different captain might say, well, no, it's a legitimate decision. We are going to enforce it.
Thomas,
for me,
sorry, go on, Jack, carry on.
I was going to say, for me, the issue with the whole situation is the laws just need to be clarified and cleared up a bit. There's too much grey area. What is the expected point of delivery? There's too big a grey area in it for me.
Thomas, it is the law and it's fine to do it. But then equally, there are laws in this world and countries in this world that operate other laws that I don't agree with. Surely, as somebody that works in cricket that talks about cricket, I'm able to say I don't actually like that, aren't I? Without getting half of the subcontinent telling me that I'm a fool.
I think absolutely you are. But what I would say, I think, the incident that we're discussing is from the Under-19 Women's World Cup. I believe the ball was Samina Tahir. No, I think I've seen a lot of brilliant stuff said about this Under-19 Women's World Cup. People have been getting really involved. They've been saying how good the streams are, how high quality they've been. Sorry, and I think there's a real danger that when something like this pops up, and you get people talking about the spirit of the game and bringing that into it, which I think is fairly arbitrary, that we're in danger of saying, "Oh, this is great." Look at this cricketing spectacle we've got, and then we're suddenly like, oh no, don't play the game like that. Like, you're supposed to be playing it this way. And I don't agree with that. It's in the laws. If the laws need to be looked at, maybe it needs to be, penalty a penalty to the batting team instead of an out.
Well, now we've got the side on camera, which looks at stumpings and looks at no balls and what have you. The umpire that's operating that obviously not in club games, but in the top games, will be able to see if the non-striker is running out the ground or not too early, won't they? So they could actually enforce something like that.
They could.
Sorry,
I was just going to say, I think if you look at a sport like baseball, where it's a fundamental part of the game, where you could be taking an extra lead off to try to steal a base, and the pitcher could swivel and throw you out at first base, and it is part of the game. That's you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, and I think it's much easier to stop yourself being mankaded than it is to stop yourself being bowled.
Isn't though, Chris? The battle, the contest in cricket between the bowler and the batter. The fielders are the support act, but the bowler is running in. He's trying to dismiss the batter. He's not trying to dismiss the non-striker. He's trying to dismiss the person with the bat in hand, waiting to try and hit the ball, isn't he? Or she?
He is, and that's going to go down the spirit of the game. The couple of things I would just pick up on really is that earlier in the back end of last year, when the India ran out the England batter from that, you could see at that point that because it was okay at that level, then it was going to become okay lower down the level. And you can start to see what absolute carnage there's going to be on a Saturday and a Sunday at club cricket, when the umpires are not on the ball, right? They're not looking at that, right? They're not seeing that. There's antagonism between rivalries, local clubs, and everything else. So at the top of the game, they've also got to bear in mind the impact this is going to have lower down, in the game. Also, if you think about a cricket pitch and a cricket field, everybody else starts. So nobody is checking that the guy that's meant to be within the 30-yard circle is within it at the point of delivery, right? They all start on the outside and they walk in, right? And we all walk in and we're judging then time the fact that we're in it at that moment in time. So there's no absolute science involved in that measurement, which would be gaining an unfair advantage. Slip catchers, wicket keepers, everybody's on the balls, the momentum. So to expect a non-receiving batter to start from a stationary point, because you're told to move forward and start the momentum going. And the interesting bit that's come up recently is the ball in play? At what point does the ball come into play?
Well, I made that comment. I made that comment on Twitter, Chris. I said that surely it's not until the bowlers release the ball, but then somebody said to me on Twitter, it's actually if the umpire calls play, basically it's when the bowler starts running in. Is somebody else's take on that? Is that actually written down anywhere?
In that case, if I'm in my prime batting against Michael Holding, I can run 2 runs before to deliver it. So as he starts running.
If I was batting against Michael Holding, I'll be running in a different direction, but that's a different story, isn't it?
But that's the point, is that I'm with the laws, but also what we always have to reflect in every aspect of life is a law that was made for the physical attributes of the game 50 years ago is not necessarily a relevant law for the physical attributes of the game now, as we saw with that exceptional bit of fielding. Was it or wasn't it a 6? Because in my world, they played the ball outside of the field of play. And I'm not quite sure that that's allowed or should be allowed. So I think that part of all of this, and Charlotte picked on it as well with what she was saying, is that an awful people that are haven't scored, or the Mankad haven't played the game. And that's, I think, an area that we will just start to see people sort of say, it's very easy, it's the rule, right? Stay in your crease, right? But those people have got a speeding fine. Those people will have crossed a white line, overtaken on a solid white line, right? To avoid something. There are things happening in life that just aren't black and white, but it suits people sometimes for the sake of getting clicks or creating an argument to take a black and white situation.
I think we need to maybe keep this in perspective a little bit, though. Like, we're debating the laws of a game versus like laws of the land. I'm not sure that those are an equal analogy.
I got into trouble for that, Charlotte. My tweet was basically comparing a Mankad with somebody walking up behind somebody whose wallet was coming out of their back pocket and stealing the wallet. I've been told by about 100,000 people that's actually a crime. I know that's a crime.
But I just think that, like, clearly this is such an emotive area of debate at the minute, and I think that this, and also like with a lot of things in cricket, like, we need to keep things in perspective. Like, those of us who love the game, obviously it feels huge to us, but it is fundamentally a game. And I don't know, like I was saying, I've been doing a lot of thinking about it, and I think I'm okay with the run out at the minute, because the game is evolving, and I started reading Hitting Against the Spin. I haven't finished it yet, but they were talking about the marginal gains that teams are looking to make these days with how far the game has evolved. And if someone is systematically leaving their crease to gain an advantage to the extent that the bowler has picked up on it and made their decision to run them out, I kind of feel like that's fair. I feel like that's on the table, because you guys, please correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen it happen enough times. Like, is this happening as a one-off event? Like, this one time this person's out of their crease, so we're going to whip the bails off? Or is this in response to a pattern that has been picked up?
I think it varies, and there's a big discussion about, should you warn a non-striker once, twice, three times, or whatever before you do inflict the run out, or should you just swoop and get rid of them as quickly as you can? And maybe, I mean, I might be cynical, but maybe that depends on the match situation and on the captain. And as Jack was saying, you know, you get two different kind of takes on it. One captain might be not doing a Mankad, the other captain might be quite happy to enforce it. I'm going to go round the group, and I'm going to get just a yes/no answer here. Chris, should you warn a non-striker before you inflict a Mankad? Yes. Charlotte?
No.
Thomas?
Don't do this to me. Would I? Probably yes. Do you have to? No. And if somebody got me out that way, it's my own fault.
Jack?
No.
It was a yes/no answer, Chris. You can't use any more words than yes/no.
The counter to that is, should an umpire then warn a bowler for running on the pitch?
Well, they do, don't they?
But you're not allowed to.
Yeah. The next around the group, yes/no, is if you were the captain of the fielding side and one of your bowlers whips the bails off at the non-striker's end, are you going to rub your hands with glee and clench your fists at taking a wicket, or are you going to say, non-striker, please come back, we're not going to enforce that? We'll start with Jack.
They're out. They're out. End of the day, they're out.
So you're taking the wicket. Thomas, you're taking the wicket.
Yeah.
If it's Nathan Lyon and co, absolutely. On a Saturday, normally, I might be a bit more lenient.
Charlotte, you're taking the wicket. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. Yes, but that's coming from like a range of different areas. Like, as a captain, you have to back your team, right? Like, I'm not going to turn around and say, no, you can't do that in front of everyone else. I don't think that.
As a captain, I mean, I've captained the team before, and I'll tell you what happened. We had a run out. It was a club game. It was like, you know, members of the opposition side with the square leg umpire, and we ran somebody out. We quite obviously ran somebody out, and the square leg umpire said not out and allowed the batter to stay. All of my team started chuntering and started sort of being disgruntled for the next two balls. I called them all in and said, stop it. We're concentrating on the next over. Let's get on with this. You're wrong here. He might have got it wrong, but we're going to get it right. So you can go against your team. You can tell your team to toe the line if you're the captain and you're leading them in a particular direction and they go a different way.
But I think if you're the captain and you're leading in a particular direction and your team do something, like explicitly do something, rather than disagree with the umpire that's in opposition to your view, is something not gone wrong with your captaincy there?
Well, if you're Charlotte, you're the captain, you told your team, right, we're not going to do any mankads, and then your fast bowler does a mankad in the second over. Are you going to claim the wicket?
Yeah.
You're ruthless, aren't you? You're ruthless, Tuckett. Chris Marshall, yes, no. Are you taking the wicket?
Yeah.
Honestly, I despair of you guys. I'm not taking it. I'm calling the non-striker back. I am.
But the problem is, James, is like you would have hoped that you would have had a conversation before the game was going to be played in. The game may, if there's a friendly game, then you have to do it than if it was if I'm playing in the finals of the senior county next year, and somebody does it, it's harder. And I'm not convinced that it's the responsibility of the people on the field to make judgment calls. I think that's what umpires are for. But then we've got a whole issue and debate about giving the umpires. It would be nice if there was a clear-cut way of resolving this, but there isn't. But what I can tell you is what Charlotte said, that it's something that is happening increasingly more, and I suspect that is a combination of people being more and more aware of it, plus the faster pace of the game. Because in the T20 game, where every run counts, as opposed to you see the old pictures of the Test cricket with the non-receiving batsman with his legs crossed, leaning on his bat, waiting till the ball's halfway to the boundary before he ambles down because he's out there for 3 hours. It's a different game now, and therefore I think maybe some kind of modification on the rules is going to be required, but not just in isolation to that. Just in terms of how suitable are all those rules for a faster paced game with more on it.
Can I just say as well, Jack brought up Charlie Dean's Mankad last year, and I think what she did in response, I think there was a lot of talk about it, but she seemed the only person who wasn't fazed by it, because her response was the perfect kind of antithesis to the whole kind of drama around it, which was the next game she ran up, kind of faked a Mankad and had a bit of a laugh about it. And as Charlotte said, it is a game, and we need to kind of separate the rules of the laws of the land, as she put it, from the laws of cricket, and it's a bit of fun, really, isn't it?
I was at Lords for both of those games. So I was at Lords for the India game, and I was at Lords for the Rachel Payo Trophy the next day. And the atmosphere leaving Lords after it happened for the India game wasn't nice at all. The atmosphere in the stands wasn't nice at all. It created an awful atmosphere in the stands. But when you then got to the next day, Charlie Dean going to do it again, breaking the ice, the whole of the ground just kind of took it and laughed and accepted it. And I think, we talk about it, in an international game on this level, but I think the issue needs to come is that the laws just need to be clarified, needs to be tidied up to be whatever it is, and then everyone just accepts it. Because you're going to end up with a situation, especially in lower divisions of cricket, in club games, in league games, where you are going to get a lot of issues with dispensable umpires, and it's prevalent already.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Jack. There's been a lot of trouble with umpires in local leagues, in some local leagues, isn't there? And this doesn't help that necessarily. It just gives more bullets to fire, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I know of some umpires that now refuse to stand in league games and around certain places because they just get abused from players. And maybe rather than saying we need to clarify one law, we need to actually go down and say, actually, we need to clarify what is allowed to happen on field, and that because abuse shouldn't be happening to anybody, whatever the position and whatever you're doing in the game.
As both Charlotte said and Thomas said, it's supposed to be fun, cricket, isn't it? It's supposed to be something we do for enjoyment, we do for a laugh, we do for passing the time, scoring, playing, whatever it's going to be. It's something that you do to actually when you have a day off or have some time off, to actually fill your social time with something good.
And you sometimes you go and watch a club game or something, you'll find more sledging and more abuse in a game than you will in a height of an Ashes game or an India-Pakistan game. Yeah. And they're the top level of the game, and their livelihoods depend on it. And I think that is probably big thing to stand out.
Please, can I just ask a very quick question?
Oh, you go for it.
How do I, just to bring it all together, how do I score a Mankad?
Well, if it's out, it's out. It's a wicket. So
it goes down as a
run out on the bowler's name.
Run out.
So it's going down as a run out. So it's not a wicket for the
it's
bowler.
Not a wicket to the bowler. It goes down as a run out. So it's a wicket.
Oh, Charlotte, if you went down as a wicket for the bowler, they'd be doing it every ball.
Is it a run out for the bowler?
It'd be run out brackets bowler, I guess, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So there we go. Anyway, cricket scoring.
I'm sure that'll be a question that's asked at all the future scoring events that are coming up.
There'll be a lot on the table, a lot on the agenda when it comes to talking about that. Thank you guys ever so much for joining me on today's Cricket Badger podcast. I'm just going to move you to one side because the Cricket Coffee in fact, I'll turn it around the right way. cricketcoffeeco.com. Excellent coffee for the cricket badgers out there, expertly roasted, and they sent me this, and I've been enjoying that for breakfast every day this week. It's been very much appreciated. So they're supporting the Cricket Badger podcast in 2023 too. Chris, Charlotte, Thomas, and Jack, thank you very much indeed for being my guest today. It's been a pleasure to have you all on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely great. And just final thing, we didn't see it, but from what Charlotte was saying, I mean, I think the T-shirt I think you've got on says "Her Game Too." Yeah, which is a lot of us need to remember that. A lot of us need to remember that, especially in my generation. It's a new, but it's a good cause. You're all very welcome to get involved. But thank you very much for coming on today.
Did you listen to the podcast I did a couple of podcasts ago, Charlotte, which was back in October, I think now, because it's been a while. We had the Say No to Sexism ladies on, and
no, I haven't had a chance to yet. No,
we were talking about misogyny and sexism in cricket on that one, and Her Game Too is very much important to that too as well. Thank you again, everybody, for watching, listening, and to my guests, Chris, Charlotte, Thomas, and Jack as well. Thank you very much for joining me today. And we will, hopefully see you again soon, and we will be back again. I think it's later on this week. Got another podcast coming later on this week, so see you then.